We're going to try to do our best to run through things in a linear way. Go ahead and put up the quad split because we're about to get some poll closings and maybe we'll get some projections we care about, but we'll just talk over that and we'll watch it. Dan and I are going to run through what we know. Okay, there's no projections in any of the battleground states. Okay, the Democrats are expressing renewed confidence about Georgia. They're not expressing much confidence about North Carolina. So I'm not saying North Carolina's done, but it's not a focus of our attention right now because it's not a focus of either party's attention, and the Republicans are pretty confident about it. Democrats are now making the case that in Georgia, the Atlanta turnout started slow, they concede, but they believe there was a surge at the end. Quad split back up, please. The surge at the end in Atlanta, and you've got, they believe there's a chance there. The Republicans are extremely confident, including Governor Kemp, about Georgia, but we'll continue to watch it until
we'll have it up in 30 seconds, Mark.
Okay. So our main focus continues to be with Michigan still pretty much a black hole, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, Democrats are now making a very parallel claim to what they're saying in Georgia, that the surge that they said happened in Atlanta, they say is now happening in Pennsylvania. They say they're going to get more votes out of Philadelphia, rather. They're going to get more votes out of Philadelphia than Joe Biden got out of Philadelphia in 2020, and that's going to be enough to win the state. I will tell you that Mar-a-Lago's confidence about Pennsylvania, both for Donald Trump and for Dave McCormick, the Senate candidate, is very high. I don't think it's bluffing; it's what they believe. But they are still asking questions about it. So we're watching Pennsylvania closely, and then in Wisconsin, Democrats are not making the same claims that they're making about Atlanta and Philadelphia about Milwaukee. And there's this controversy about how votes were counted in Milwaukee. And so we're trying to figure that out. In Virginia, there's some county data that suggests the race will be close. Loudoun County, for instance, moved very far red compared to 2020. And so we're watching Virginia, not necessarily because it's going to go Trump, but because it may be an indication of where things stand. The exit poll, additional waves come in. It continues to be the case that the national mood is very favorable for Donald Trump, but it's not producing a huge win. And as I said in the last hour, we're continuing to watch this prospect that Bobby Kennedy is taking votes from Donald Trump in the places he remains on the ballot. I'm going to read a couple messages I just got and throw it to Dan for Dan's either annotations to what I said or anything you have that you want to tell folks.
Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, a lot of Democrats have gone silent at this point. I think the nerves are settling in. The boiler rooms are, cranking out the data, and then it kind of trickles out usually within the campaigns. Some of it over the water cooler and other things. Yes, there is some optimism that Philadelphia has turned out and perhaps exceeded 2020 levels. That would be huge because, as we've talked about, the Joe Biden had a margin out of Philadelphia of over 1 million. And it was about 400,000 going into today. That would be the first urban center, as we said when we went off the air 45 minutes ago, where perhaps we are seeing, signs of what could be a victory. And then also, Atlanta, I mentioned on the show earlier a couple of days ago that there was some kind of cautious optimism that the late early vote in Georgia was picking up. And that if that continued, it wasn't out of the realm that they could maybe steal Georgia. I continue to hear that Wisconsin is the problem. Turnout in Milwaukee, it appears, was not what they had hoped. And for those, Hillary Clinton fans in 2016, this is what doomed her. It was just a couple percentage point drop in Milwaukee, but that ended up making the difference. So, everyone is on their toes now, just waiting to hear. And another Clinton reference, for those who remember, Virginia was the first state that was an oh shoot moment. There were, Governor McAuliffe was planning to kind of bring the gavel down, get on a plane, go to Jacob Javits and be there for the celebration. And he didn't leave because it was concerning what they were seeing, seeing in Appalachia, what Northern Virginia looked like. So if we start seeing Virginia being close again, it's going to, for a lot of Democrats, it's going to start making them nervous again.
Yeah, let's listen to Kornacki, please.
It earlier, there's just a lot of very small rural counties that are going to be deep, deep red. And one of the questions coming into tonight was, would there be any slippage for Donald Trump in those counties, those core Republican Trump counties? Remember, he's trying to make up a deficit. He lost by about 12,000 votes last time. So we've got about 10 now completed of those rural, heavily Trump counties. We're talking about places where he's going to get 70, 75, 80% of the vote. In all 10 that have now been completed, Trump's vote share relative to 2020 has gone up between 1 and 3 points. So again, there's a lot more rural counties out there, but they start to add up. And when it's 10 for 10 so far, I'd say that's something the Trump campaign in that layer is looking for. Now, there are other layers to this. Let me take you to another one. We talk about, for the Democrats, this core blue area in and immediately around Atlanta, and we're starting to get a lot more out of here. So let's say Fulton County, this is the biggest of the big. This is where Atlanta is, or most of Atlanta. It bleeds over into another county. But again, we've got the early vote, we think, here out of Fulton, or a lot of it.
Sorry,
and
switch over to John
King. Put this in
please.
some perspective. This is how Biden.
If she can, it would show African-American turnout and that she's doing well in the suburbs. Then you move, if you're the Democrat, over to Wake County, which is Raleigh, the second largest population center in the state. Again, we're only at 7%. So this is just a glimpse, and then we check back. 72% for her, or if you want to look at Trump's number, equally important, where is he performing vis-a-vis last time? 27% for him. You come back here, 62%. So again, in the early returns in North Carolina, the Vice President of the United States, in the key areas, the Democratic building blocks, is running ahead of her boss 4 years ago. That doesn't mean it will hold up. Let's just scoot over to Durham and take a look. Biden got 80% there, and you come back to Harris now, she's getting 84%. Again, it's only 5% reporting. Early votes tend to be disproportionately Democratic, so let's watch and see how it plays out. Early in the campaign, you're just checking your list. Are we above or below where we want to be? And if you're above, you take a breath and you wait for more votes to come in. I want to look out in this part of the state, because this is the part of the state that was hit hardest by Hurricane Helene. There have been questions, could people vote? The state has done a remarkable job getting the facilities open and making people to vote. Buncombe County is where Asheville is right here. Again, only 7% in, 77% if you round up for the vice president. If you go back again in these early results, emphasis on early results, she's overperforming Joe Biden, who just narrowly lost North Carolina 4 years ago. So if that holds up, it tells you keep an eye on North Carolina. At the moment, she's doing what she needs to do, but I just want to be cautious that it's early votes, which tend to favor the Democrats. So let's wait until we get more. Only at 7% in North Carolina, but
let's go to
keep
Bill
counting
Hemmer,
from
please.
there. So then Georgia is hanging on the board.
Outline so we can show you what the vote was at this point 4 years ago. Okay, let's go ahead and click on this and find out together. Okay, Loudoun County with 96% of the vote reporting in that county. Trump's got a 3.3 jump higher than he was performing 4 years ago. Now we'll clear this off here. How it computes here on the computer with 4 years ago. That's a slip about 4.5 points for Kamala Harris in that county. And Harold, maybe it is the issues in the schools. Maybe it is the transgender issue that the Trump team pushed so much during this campaign, and maybe that's having an impact on that. Let's move away from Virginia. There's a couple interesting stories I just want to bring our viewers up to date on. Just punching around this map here. You can find a little good news for Kamala Harris. You can find good news for Donald Trump, and I'm going to show you why here. Down in Florida, just looking at Duval County and Jacksonville, okay? This is advantage Trump from where he was 4 years ago in Duval County. You see that? You see that swap? Flipped it by 5 points there. Now I want to go up to Georgia here, and in the rurals, east of Atlanta and to the south. Now the Fox Insight here, right? Okay? That's Baldwin County. The county seat in Baldwin County is Milledgeville. It was the Confederate capital of Georgia during the Civil War. Now, our Fox Insights tell us right now, look at this, okay? It has 2 colleges in this county. The African-American population is about 44% countywide. Trump right now, at this moment, with 84% of the vote reported in Baldwin County, he's up 7.5 points from where he was in 2020. The Trump team's going to take that. Likewise, okay, the metro area of Atlanta. Let me pop out here. You got 26 counties to concentrate on. What the Harris folks are telling us in Douglas County is that she's performing better than Biden did 4 years ago. Okay, these are suburban voters all over the Atlanta metro area. So she's a net gain of 18,267 right now. All right, you got about a quarter of the vote still out there. Biden finished in Douglas County with a net gain of 17,360. That would be good news for the Harris campaign if this number holds there in Douglas County. Let me pop out here a moment.
Okay,
Show you
mute
another
for a
thing here
second.
that we were
So
looking at.
let me just tell you what's
Can you
going
stay in
on
Georgia
as,
for
as
one
far as
second?
as
I
far
can.
as I understand it now. Go ahead and mute that. So we don't have a lot of raw vote in, and what's in, you never know exactly, what's in, what's still out. And so what people are basing their judgments on, the flavor of what you're hearing on television, the flavor of what Dan and I are hearing from our sources. Okay. It's a combination of what we see in the raw vote, of what we know is in the exit poll, and then what is our sources are telling us. Okay. The Trump campaign's kind of macro view is we're ahead. We're going to win these states, all 4 states, they say, because the urban vote isn't big enough. The rural vote is huge. And her lead from early vote was not big enough. That's their macro view. And it's expressed in confidence, not just from Mar-a-Lago, but from officials, elected officials in the states, as well as some Democrats who concur. What the Harris campaign is doing now, somewhat genuine and somewhat just tactically to make sure that the decision desks of the networks don't move towards trying to project a winner, is offering up, as you heard Bill Hemmer saying, look at this county, look at that county. Okay. New Hampshire and Virginia are offering up evidence in both the exit polls and the returns that good for Trump. Maybe won't win them, probably won't win them, but good for Trump. And the exit poll overall is good for Trump, particularly the wrong track question. So in a rational world where we weren't all gathered together and where cable and broadcast television didn't have to fill things out, we'd wait 2 more hours before we had this conversation. Because in 2 hours at about 10 o'clock, we'll know a lot more because we'll have a lot more raw vote in, which will not just give us a baseline for understanding where the vote is in, where it stands, and where the vote is still out, but it will also fill in some of the gaps here that where the spin of the campaigns will matter less. So we're not going to adjourn till 10, but I'm just telling you, it is very unlikely that on the 4 states that are our current focus, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, what I'm telling you is we'll talk about it. We'll bring people in. You all can ask questions, but don't count on knowing anything specific or definitive or quasi-definitive until after 10 Eastern time. Dan, and then Tricia, please.
Yeah, Mark, you're absolutely right. I think that, everyone's pointing to things that make their case look good, and they're going to continue to do that. And once you start getting 85-90% of these counties in, you can start, drawing some conclusions. But those urban centers tend to be the last ones in. So, I did see someone just put in the chat that Trump right now is winning 25% of the black vote in Georgia. That would be a good sign for Donald Trump.
Yeah. Tricia, and then Meghan McCain, just your overall thoughts, please.
Yeah, I was seeing 25% of the male black vote in Georgia, but I'll have to double check on that. Yeah, I'm seeing exit poll out of CBS that says that 5% of North Carolina voters made their decision in the last week, and that's favoring Kamala Harris. So, I mean, that's a bright spot for them. But, of course, CNN's reporting out of their exit polls that there's a 20-point swing for independents for Donald Trump. So, I mean, that's massive as well. So I think, obviously, we're all just saying that we have to see more data to really come to any conclusion on any of these.
Yeah, and people in the comments are flagging the exit is Trump is at 25% with males. Black males in Georgia, yes. 15% overall. Thank you. That's what I get for glancing at the chat while doing this.
Yeah. So again, we talked about on the morning meeting, we talked about the boiler rooms. Okay. These are the data geek operations. I don't usually like to use that term. These are the very smart people who work for the campaigns who have access to raw vote. They have access to folks on the ground who are feeding them information. They have access to their analytics. And the boiler rooms, unlike the network decision desks, they're not trying to be first to project a race, and they don't have the exit poll, but they do have their own analytics. And when a boiler room says to the senior staff, we're going to win this state, sometimes they're wrong, but they're usually not, right? They have a lot of information and they're not in the business of being wrong. The Trump boiler room believes they will win Georgia, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. If that's the case, Trump will win. So we've talked for days about the Mar-a-Lago confidence. Now that extends to a same day characterization of their smartest analytic people that Trump will win those 3 states. And if he wins those 3 states, he can't lose. It doesn't matter what happens in Pennsylvania or Michigan, assuming he wins Arizona, which he's likely to. So is Megan here? And if she is, Megan, we'd love to just get some initial thoughts from you about the evening.
I'm muted. Oh, got it. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Megan. What?
Hello.
Thank you for joining. Glad to have you here. Thoughts on anything you want to share?
My liberal friends are freaking out, for whatever that's worth. I don't think the 25% male vote in Georgia is helping anyone. And even I don't have the numbers right directly in front of me, but the independent swing from Biden to Trump in Georgia is not a great signal for anyone who is, hoping that she will win. I think there's going to be a lot of dissecting to do. I just keep thinking of Bridget Phetasy, who you had on yesterday, who is a friend of mine, who is a woman who is very anti-Trump for a very long time and ended up voting for him because of, in no small part, the culture war issues. And I really hope that if he does win, there's some real soul searching on the side of Democrats just about the damage a lot of this has done to so many women and so many moms I know. And if he ends up losing, I hope there's some soul searching about the impact of women, because I know a lot of Nikki Haley voters, the cliche Nikki Haley voter, which I happen to be myself, who feel really left out of the party right now, really ignored. We're pretty insulted by the fact that he never asked Nikki Haley to come campaign with him. It's still a significant voting bloc. It's about anywhere between 11 to 14% of the party. I mean, no one really knows what's going on, but I do think that if he wins New Hampshire, I have a lot of personal folklore about New Hampshire, and I think it would be, for me, very hard to foresee her coming back from that.
Yeah, that's all super interesting, Megan. Thank you. Just on the map, I wasn't right in what I said. I had to go to 270 to win to make sure. If Trump wins North Carolina, Georgia, and Wisconsin, and his campaign believes he will, that doesn't get him there at all. He still needs to win. No, hold on.
He'd have to win Arizona, Nevada,
Or just one of them. He'd
or
have to just win one.
or not Nevada, Arizona.
He'd have to win Arizona. He'd still have to win Arizona or Pennsylvania or Michigan. Yeah. He'd have to win one of those. Nevada would not be enough, but Arizona would be enough. He's at 260. He's at 261 with Georgia, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. So it's not over because she could win the rest of them. It's not over even if she takes those. And again, doesn't have those. All right. Let's bring some folks in for questions for Megan and for Tricia and for Dan, and we continue to watch what's going on cable. Let's go to Kornacki first, please.
Trump still won North Carolina, but his margin shrank. It's why Democrats think they got a shot here tonight. And this is a big reason why Trump's margin shrank in North Carolina. He just didn't squeeze as much out of these big core Republican suburbs. He won it, but it was 24 instead of 30. And I think that's a very good bellwether gauge tonight. As you see this county come in, is Trump falling short of that number again? Democrats would like to chip away, get that down to 60, 59, something like that. There's a number of big suburbs in the state. There are some of them, are outside Raleigh, where that's the story. It's a core Republican, but does it get a little bit less so? So again, statewide now in North Carolina, it's sort of scattered, as you can see, in these different counties. But statewide right now, 4 points. And again, we talk about this. Let's just take a look, because we've got some, I'm checking these to see one thing that I'm looking for here. We've got Anson County has let's take a look and put this in some perspective here. Significant black population. It is one of the stories in North Carolina. The Democrats in counties with large black populations think they can improve the turnout, think they can improve Democratic margins in some cases, maybe flip some of them. So we do have 3/4. It's very small, but this is the kind of county we're going to be looking at. There's a lot of them in rural eastern North Carolina. Not much to show you right now, but with large black populations. Barack Obama was the last Democrat to carry North Carolina. He carried some of those counties. The Democrats have kind of fallen off dramatically in them. We want to see it's in this eastern North Carolina area here. We want to see as these fill in, are Democrats taking strides forward there? They think they can with Kamala Harris as the nominee. They think they've improved their ground game. That'll be a test for it. So again, sitting there at about 9% statewide in North Carolina, and returning to Georgia, where we now have about half of the vote in. And again, just going to take a quick look. I have struck out on this every time, but this is going to be very big when we get votes from Gwinnett. And we don't have many more from Gwinnett, but you're starting to take shape here again. That's that core Democratic area. Just see if we have any more from Fayette. I'm going to go back and take a look right here. But again, now almost half the vote in Georgia, and I think starting to see a little bit in the way of patterns, just in terms of the rurals, at least in Georgia. Rachel.
Thank you, Steve. We will be checking back in with you. I should also mention, just while we're talking about Georgia, we have been keeping up.
You can mute this, please. Again, Harris's chances of winning Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin rely currently, this is not some revelation because this was true from the beginning, rely on big turnout from the major cities in those 3 states. And what the Trump people are saying is there's too much of a shift in rural and exurban counties to Trump based from 2020 for her to make it up for it. And in the 3 cities are slightly different as we understand it currently. In Milwaukee, underperformance. In Georgia, certainly initial underperformance. Democrats claim late strong performance. And in Philadelphia, very mixed reporting. Democrats say matched or exceeded 2020 performance out of Philadelphia. Republicans say not nearly enough out of Philadelphia. Okay.
Someone is texting me right now that Michigan, they feel like they are exceeding their targets now with the black vote, and that they now believe that Republican absentee, they won by about 5%. The model suggested it needed to be 12% or higher. There is some optimism now that some of these precincts in Detroit and other areas are coming in, that they hit their targets.
Yeah,
that's the first city that I've heard somebody say we actually are seeing some good data and not just.
Okay, Brittany, come on in. You're a Trump voter from Michigan. Tell us what's on your mind, please.
Hi there. Yes, I am a first-time Trump voter. I was a Democrat my entire life. I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 reluctantly. Was not a fan of her, but I was going to be willing to do anything to stop Trump at that point. By 2020, with COVID and myriad of other things and the party moving increasingly left, I wrote in a candidate just as a protest vote. I wasn't comfortable voting for Trump yet. I don't think even to myself, admitting it to myself. But by this year, it wasn't even a question. I've been all in for Trump. Since the very beginning of this campaign.
Over what issues?
Probably my biggest ones are I see with the party moving increasingly left, the transgender issue, race, the party increasingly, from what I see, clamping down on free speech, not allowing any room for dissent. Everything has to be toe the party line. I've seen the Democrats move from the party of tolerance and acceptance and liberalism to the party of conformity, and you have to think exactly like us. And I see to me, the Democratic Party that I see is unrecognizable. I can't ever see myself supporting the Democratic Party as it currently is ever again, unless there's massive changes.
Okay,
And
Brittany, thank you. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
Brittany, were there any non-cultural issues that you still feel an affinity to the party, to the Democratic Party on, or is that just one of them?
I still consider myself pro-choice. Overall, that is nowhere near enough for me to consider voting for the Democratic Party in any capacity. And I think the Democrats, if Kamala Harris loses, which I hope she does, I think that one of the biggest things the Democratic Party needs to look at is the possible over-reliance on women who I'm sure will turn out more for Harris, which I would expect, but I think they are over-relying on women and the abortion issue. I know plenty of women in my personal life from all different walks of the political spectrum, whether they were conservative or were not previously conservative, who are not voting for Harris. And even if, and I'm talking about pro-choice women, because simply they don't think that she has the capacity to lead in any other areas, including the situations that we're at in the Middle East right now, in the Ukraine, the economy, which is one of the biggest issues for me, inflation. I haven't seen anything out of Kamala Harris, the Biden administration, that's, done anything in a real way to solve it. And I think that that's where a lot of people are. I think that abortion is big, but I don't think it's as big as they think it is.
Yeah. Brittany, hold on one second. Let's listen to John King, and then I want to see if Megan or Tricia want to ask you a question, but let's listen to John King, please.
He's in trouble in Pennsylvania, but again, these are very, very, very early results. So we've been looking at this from the vice president's perspective. Let's come back to 2024 and look at it from the former president's perspective, and that is these red areas out here. So this is Butler County. This is where the rally was, where the assassination attempt was made on the former president's life. Very small smattering of votes right here, but this is Trump country. This is Trump country. 81% of the vote at the moment right now. You go back 4 years ago, 67%. So let's see. Let's see. It's very, very early. So it's not. I'm not making the comparison now. It's just one of the places we laid out markers and we look. Does Donald Trump match or exceed his 2020
Megan or
performance?
Tricia, do you have a question for Brittany?
I do. Brittany, was there anything that Kamala Harris could have said in the last 7 to 10 days, or even the last 100 days since she took the nomination, that could have persuaded you to vote for her?
Absolutely nothing. She is one of the worst politicians I've ever seen in my entire life. I truly don't know how she made it this far. Truthfully, in politics, I think she's completely inept and incompetent. There's a reason she couldn't even make it to Iowa in 2019. She's been completely propped up because of her identity. Joe Biden literally said as much when he picked her. She was handed a nomination she didn't earn. There's literally nothing she could have said or done. I wouldn't vote for her in any capacity ever.
Okay, Megan.
Brittany, can I ask you, excuse me,
Yeah.
how much do you think the culture war played a role in your choice today? I tweeted yesterday, it's ironic that Democrats' best chance at winning is through women voters, despite the fact that they've been unable to define what a woman is the past 4 years. I know a lot of women who have had a lot of problems with the direction of the party, and I really think it's
Absolutely
the underreported story of the past few years. I think the anger of moms, I just saw that Loudoun County swung, which is the county that there's a lot of controversies people can Google about, that Trump just swung it by 8 points. That's not a district I would expect Trump to win. How much of an impact do you think it had on your choice to vote for him?
Huge. I am a mom as well. I have a son that's 16 months old. And yes, I mean, this started really even before my son was born. It's the way the Democratic Party has swung on culture issues really since 2016 on, but I would say really in the last 3 to 4 years has been insane. I mean, again, as you said, and a lot of people have said, they can't define what a woman is. And I support all adults' rights to do what they want, but that's beside the point. We have to live in reality, and they don't live in reality anymore when it comes to things like this. I mean, I have lost lifelong friends because I voiced what I don't think is in any way intolerant, saying that women's spaces are women's spaces. And, it's just, you can't reason with people like this. And I don't know how I couldn't vote for a party that can't live in reality, that can't find some of the most basic facts in existence. The economy, yes, is probably my number one issue as someone who's a middle class person, but that was huge. That was huge. I can't underestimate it. And I think it is very underreported.
Brittany, thank you. Super interesting. Glad you joined us. Thank you so much. Couple things. First of all, when we talk about foreign interference in our elections, earlier today when there were bomb threats called in Georgia, the Secretary of State said they were called in by a foreign power. We've now got some bomb threats called in Pennsylvania. Very hard to stop, right? It's like a low-tech thing. They just pick up the phone, call in a bomb threat from wherever they're calling from. And so that's a challenge because it disrupts and it creates these equal protection issues. Two things from the exit poll, and again, take the exit polls with giant shakers of salt. One is it shows Donald Trump doing much better now than he did 4 years ago with Hispanic men. That was widely forecast to be the case, but it seems to be the case. And he's also doing much better with independents than he did 4 years ago. And we're seeing that in some of the individual states as well. But if he does win, those two things will be big. More communication with the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign about the 4 states we're focused on. The Trump campaign says, as I said before, they say they're quite confident they're going to win North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona. They haven't given up on the other 3 battleground states, but they do believe they'll win those. And as we said a moment ago, that's enough to win. And the Harris campaign continues to point to their belief that they can still win Georgia. Okay, Pennsylvania remains a kind of a challenge. Any of the 3 of you want to say anything about any of that?
Yeah.
No. All right. Let's go to Bill Hemmer. Or no, not Bill Hemmer. To Rick Klein of ABC, please.
Very Democratic leaning, but we're going to be talking a lot about these counties, I think, tonight. This is a really interesting one. Bucks County is a place that we've seen Democrats grow their vote share. Donald Trump doing a lot worse than he did 4 years ago, a little worse than he did in 2016. You see how Biden was able to jump 3 points in a place that's about 5-6% of the vote across the state. Right now, Harris netting about 14,000 votes out of Bucks. It is still very early. We have less than 10% of the total vote in, but as these counties come in, you start to see some interesting trends emerge where Kamala Harris, in that early vote that's in, hitting beyond where Joe Biden did and beyond where the 538 benchmark.
This is one of those sort of boomerang counties, right? Northampton being watched very closely.
That's right. That's right.
Because it flipped. It went to Trump. It went from Trump to Biden.
That's right.
And now, obviously, Kamala Harris is trying to win that county as well. Let's look up at Luzerne County, Lackawanna County. Obviously, Joe Biden's sort of home turf.
Yeah, we don't have any vote. No vote in yet, but these are going to be interesting ones to watch.
How about Allegheny County back to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Pittsburgh. We're seeing about 30% of the vote in, and it's almost all early by mail vote. That is 100,000 votes. That's about half of the margin that Harris has netted so far is coming out of that one county, again, ahead of where Biden was, pointing to that interesting bright spot in early vote that we saw for Democrats in Pennsylvania.
We're going to be looking at the rural portions of Pennsylvania too, Terry, because you've reported on this extensively. And Donald Trump is going to have to keep that rural vote right at where it was or improve upon it if he wants to make up for the loss 4 years ago, 80,000 or so votes.
Okay,
exactly. That is his strength.
CNN is projecting the North Carolina race and the governor's race, rather. And interesting thing, there were so many topics that were said to be going to be factors in the fall. Campus protests, the final economic statistics, and then people said the governor's race. And they said when the Republican nominee was blown up, they said this was going to be bad for Donald Trump. There's now a theory that I've heard from people in both parties that the CNN investigative piece on the gubernatorial candidate, which was clearly oppo given to them by the Democrats, actually made it better for Trump because it took that race out of the news. And Trump is going to run well ahead of his party's gubernatorial nominee. And again, some people are going to look back and say that was a mistake for the Democrats They should have let the guy who was plenty controversial and was going to lose the race anyway stay in the race. Would have been campaigning with Trump. It might have made it harder for Trump to win the state. That's a theory. Trisha, Dan, Megan, what do you think of that theory?
Yeah, I mean, also if you are just, not only to take it out of the news, but if you were disgusted by the conduct of let's say both, you could punish the gubernatorial candidate because perhaps his conduct was more outrageous, and it would make you feel a little less, bad might be the wrong word, to vote for Trump, right? And so splitting that difference in your head perhaps is something that some GOP voters did.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm fully buying that, just given in the Trump era, split ticket is so rare. But as well, I mean, I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention, like a lot of people, because it seems like this is a no-win for Republicans, given that Oppo research. But I would like to know, what were the ads saying? Were they affiliating Trump with Robinson? What were the, pamphlets that are getting passed out? Was it seen Donald Trump cozying up to him? Is there going to be, an up at the top of the ticket? Is Robinson going to impact Trump? That'd be unusual, but it could happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
it could.
Look, if you want to talk about ticket splitting, Arizona is a great, indicator of that. I'm personally looking forward to hearing Kari Lake's loss announced. She has a 78% chance of losing, according to the Cook Political Report as of yesterday. I'm not just manifesting something. And I think it's a longer conversation if Trump wins about candidate quality, because it doesn't always work. I'm still not convinced his disciples can pull off and his imitators can pull off what he just did. And Kari Lake has now lost the governor's race in Arizona and will lose the Senate race in Arizona, turning my home state that was red for over 80 years blue, entirely blue. And I think, at a certain point, there are, again, independents, center-right people, libertarians, especially in Arizona, that aren't just going to want, these MAGA imitators. And even if we win the White House, I still think there's longer, broader conversations about ticket splitting, because it's happening right now in Arizona.
Yeah. All right. Let's check in on John King real quick, please.
Big Democratic stronghold. This was critical to Biden coming back in Georgia as they counted the votes in 2020. Trump had an early lead, but as the count went on into the day after and the day after that, Clayton County was one of the places where Joe Biden got a lot of votes. And you see 85% for the vice president, about 3/4 of the count, 76% right there. So how does that compare to 2020? About the same, right? You got 85 when you round that up. You got 85 when you round that up. So here we go in Georgia again. So far as you go through it, you've got a very competitive race. So that one's competitive. Let's come out of there. I want to go up and look at Michigan. We haven't spent any time here yet. Only 6% of the vote in. So be careful about anything, but you're trying to look and see what happens.
Kornacki,
again,
please.
This is Kent County. Both campaigns focus on
road to 270 scenario. So, first of all, for Democrats in Philadelphia, it's just a question of margin. Harris is going to win this very big, but let me just show you what happened in 2020. This is what it looked like, and this was a margin for Democrats. You could see Biden 603,000, Trump 132,000. That is a margin of about 470,000 votes for Democrats out of Philadelphia. I think one of the numbers to keep an eye on as Philadelphia and Pennsylvania comes in is, does that get up to, if that got to 500,000, maybe set that as a bit of a benchmark here. If Democrats can get that up to 500,000, I think they're going to be feeling very good about what they can do in Pennsylvania. Can they drive that number up? Because, while this is a big number for Democrats, this 81-18 victory for Biden over Trump, there was a little bit of slippage there. This is just the city of Philadelphia. A little bit of slippage there for Democrats, give it relative to what they used to get out of Philadelphia. It's because in 2020, in part, Trump made gains with Hispanic voters in Hispanic precincts and neighborhoods of Philadelphia. So that's one of the things to watch tonight. Democrats are getting a big margin, but how big? Is it going north of 470? Is it getting up to 5? Or does this tick down another point or two in either direction here? So we're going to be looking out of that in Philadelphia. The other big thing, look, the collar counties of Philadelphia, these four right here. It's Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County, and Bucks County. Take them in almost two sections here. Take these three together. Delaware County, where we do have a little bit of vote, can show you right now. Core Democratic county, this is a little bit more racially diverse. You see Biden won this by 26 points. It's just about running up the number for Democrats in Delaware County, as is the case in Chester County. Now, Chester County, again, this fits that profile we talk about. High concentration of college degrees, higher income. There's no county in Pennsylvania in the Trump era that has become more Democratic to the degree that Chester County has. So as you start to look at the results come in here tonight, it'll be a while. See what Biden got here, 58%. Maybe set a benchmark in your head of 60%. Can Harris break 60% in Chester? Because what's happening in Pennsylvania, and this is going to be a theme in the two other northern tier battleground states, what's happening in Pennsylvania is the Democratic base is geographically contracting. Trump came along in 2016 and he started to run up massive margins in rural areas of the state, rural blue-collar areas of the state. And what's happened is the Democratic base has become more geographically contracted.
Go ahead and mute it, please. Okay, so let me tell you what we're doing now. We're going to take a break and come back with you at 9 o'clock. And we'll be with you for about 7 minutes at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:10, Dan and I and Sean will be on with Megyn Kelly, which you can switch over and watch. Just go to Megyn Kelly's YouTube channel. You can see us there. We'll be there for half an hour, and then we'll come back to you at 10 o'clock. But we'll see you at 9 o'clock. Right now, what we're tracking is seeing whether the Trump folks are right about Georgia and North Carolina. We're tracking in Milwaukee how much of the vote, this thing about the vote having to be recounted, and seeing if the Trump people are right there. That's the main thing is those three. Pennsylvania is its own big thing. Michigan's its own big thing. The two Western states. But remember, if Harris loses North Carolina and Georgia, and the pushback is much stronger from Wilmington about Georgia than it is about North Carolina. There's not much pushback from them on North Carolina. If the Trump people are right about Georgia, and presuming, as both campaigns do, that Arizona will also go to Trump, then we're back to the question of whether Harris can win all three of the Great Lakes states. And right now, we don't know much about Michigan. We know that Milwaukee is a big problem, Wisconsin's a big problem, and Pennsylvania, there's still this big debate about whether enough votes coming out of Philadelphia. So we will see you. You'll get a link. You can rejoin here on Zoom at 9 o'clock, or if you want to join on YouTube, you'll get a link from me in Substack. It'll be on you. It'll be on my Twitter feed. It'll be on the two-way Twitter feed. Come with us at 9 o'clock. We'll be with you briefly. Then come to watch us on Megyn Kelly, and then we'll be back at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I hope that all makes sense, and we're going to have a lot more reporting. And the 10 o'clock session we have is going to be a big one because there's going to be a lot of data at 10 o'clock. We'll know a lot more about raw data coming in from the states, and we'll have more reporting about what the campaigns are saying. Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because, getting this text about Michigan, sometimes what you're not getting speaks even louder. And at this point in 2020 and even in 2012, the Democratic campaigns would point to specific areas, demographics, This is why we feel good. Like, just be patient. Like, this is the fact that there's silence, but they will throw out one thing for Michigan tells you sometimes, what they're not saying speaks a little louder.
Yeah. It does appear that Harris will win both Virginia and New Hampshire, but they're going to be, based on what I'm being told now, they're going to be pretty close, which again just speaks to the question of Trump's general strength. Okay. Thank you all. We will see you at 9 o'clock right here. And again, you'll get linked shortly. Thank you all very much, Megyn and Tricia. I hope you'll come back at 9. Thank you.
Thanks.